Thanks, everybody. How you doing? Woo! Good times. So I wanted to talk about building the ecosystem. It's a section with myself, Ben Balter from GitHub, and a few other folks after that. As Dave mentioned, I'm fairly new to Code for America. I just joined about 6 months ago or so, but my history with the organization goes back all the way to its founding about 4 years ago. I first met Jen Palka at an event here in San Francisco called Data SF, featuring Gavin Newsom and Tim O'Reilly. And he spoke, and he said these words during his talk: government as a platform. And as a sort of technology person, this really resonated with me because I deal with a lot of technology platforms every day in my day-to-day work. And so I kind of have an intuitive understanding of what it means for government to be a platform. But after joining Code for America, it sort of occurred to me as I thought about this that, platform might not be natural language for a lot of people coming from government world. So I wanted to talk a little bit about 3 principles that define a platform to kind of answer this question of what actually is a platform. And one of the best documents that I've ever read about platform design and technology comes from a guy named Steve Yegge at Google, who released a kind of internal platform rant a couple years ago, where he talks about these kind of 3 principles that make up what a platform should be. First principle is that the golden rule of platforms is that you're supposed to eat your own dog food. And what he means by this is that you don't make people food for yourself and dog food for your developers. Or more concretely for government folks, you don't make rules for yourself and then make separate rules for your constituents, but rather you create rules that apply to everybody, yourself included. The second principle of good platform design is that they're all about long-term thinking. This is huge. The rules that you create have to last for decades, centuries in some cases. In technology world, this might be visible as something like the Microsoft Windows platform. Back when Microsoft was doing the switch to Windows 95, they had an engineer named Raymond Chen, and he took it as a personal failing if any code from any third-party application written like as far back as 1982 didn't seamlessly transition to Windows 95. That is huge long-term thinking. And thirdly, a platform is all about accessibility. Now, as nerds, when we hear the word accessibility, we might think of things like computer accessibility for the deaf or blind users in our midst. But what I think Steve Yegge is getting at is something that's much better captured by the word inclusivity. The idea that a platform is something that you make available to everybody out in the world, and on their own terms they can come and experience it with you, whether they're blind, deaf, impatient, a little slow, whatever. Maybe they're robots, maybe they're computers, maybe they're other services that are consuming your platform. So the kind of too long didn't read version of this whole thing that is my takeaway is that platforms are intentional. A platform is not something that just sort of falls off a truck. You have to mean it. You have to actually decide to make one and create it as a matter of intent. As government people, this might be really familiar to you. You already have this platform of roads that's available for all of your citizens in your various cities. Government is in some ways the original platform, and roads are, they're dog food. You drive on the same roads that you legislate to create. You make long-term plans for their maintenance, and you make sure that they're available to all kinds of people. So what are we doing at Code for America to help our partners be good platforms? I think probably the most succinct way to think about it is that we're trying to take the rocket science out of technology and government. We're trying to make this stuff a little bit simpler and easier to understand by removing a lot of that tech mumbo-jumbo that happens in technology talk and make it a little bit more like talking about roads. So concretely, that might be things like data services. We created data standards like house facts around building code violations, data APIs around industry codes and census information. These are things that we dog food for ourselves. We consume these things on our own projects. We commit to running them long term. And finally, they're just important for all comers that might need to use this stuff, and therefore are built on very simple data standards like comma-separated values, plain text, JSON, these types of technologies. So really, really simple stuff. It has kind of an interesting corollary when you think about how these platforms connect to other platforms, because we've seen situations currently where the entire government shuts down, all census.gov websites go away, and so you have this wonderful situation where these data sets that we use from Census and build upon are now possible for us to mirror and make available to people during the time that census.gov is shut down. Another way that we're doing this is by monitoring all of our applications for peace of mind. We're creating an application that we're sort of loosely calling Engine Light, which is based around the idea of the engine light in your car. You all know that when that light comes on your dashboard, your car doesn't immediately careen off the road, but you have a little bit of time to sort of plan a visit to the mechanic or to get an oil change or whatever. We're trying to take that same approach to all 2013 and then by extension all future applications, especially during this time when we're thinking about future sustainability as our year comes to a close. And finally, we're starting to make connections between the tech team, the fellows, the brigades beyond that. We're switching to a model where instead of thinking about these siloed programs throughout Code for America, we're starting to connect all of that stuff together and kind of create a more intentional, broad-based platform that kind of stewards our code out there and strengthens all these different connections with our partner cities, further out in the community, and beyond, kind of draw people out through all these tendrils we have into the community. So these are kind of some of the ways that Code for America is thinking about government as platform.